Yeah, some of our board members are at conflicting board meetings and different things. Carrie has a presentation. Are you going to give a little history of how this came about? Okay, perfect. About the district strategic planning.
We have, obviously, we plan. We plan for the future, you plan for your future, your children's future, and it's something that as a district we need to get together and plan for the future. You have heard of Vision 2014, we've talked about that a great deal. 2014 has not come and gone, but as we look to the future, we want to be a part of that. And we had an amazing group of our community, our staff, our administration get together at the end of September for 3 full, fun-filled days of planning and thinking about our district and where we collectively need to go. So that's kind of the background. Eric Anderson and Mary were on that committee. Do either one want to give a little background about that before I go through my 8-minute quick one?
Sure, I'll be fast, but we literally spent 2 full days on Thursday and Friday from 8 in the morning until 9 o'clock at night. Working as a group of 30, and it was this wonderful mix of divergent perspectives. We had 15 people from the district, 15 community members. You had everything from retired 3Mers to clergy, to classroom teachers, to coordinators, to administrators, to school board members.
High school kids.
2 high school kids who brought a whole nother important lens to this whole process. But the cool part about it was lots of different perspectives at times. You know, we really, there was some push, but the singular focus was on what's best for all of the learners in 834, and I was just delighted to be a part of the process. It was great. Well, that's my lens.
Yeah, and I would say exactly what Eric did, and as I've shared this with a few staff groups this last week or so, you know, I went into this, you know, you think of the time commitment and everything, I was like, oh gosh. But it was so energizing right from the beginning, and it was really, maybe with my new lens on a little bit, just it was so wonderful to see community members and such a rich group of people with a focus that was positive for kids and looking towards the future, and to tap on the great potential we already is happening and to move forward. I mean, it was really an honor to be a part of it. So.
And so I'm going to give a very quick overview of where we are, where we're going. And I'm going to invite you to be a part of this process because you know your kids, you know the community, and we want you to be a part of this process as we move forward in Stillwater. So that's what our strategic planning is. Why do we plan? We all plan. And as Eric said, we're focusing on students. I'm not going to read this all to you because Krista said I have 8 minutes.
Oh. I thought I said 15.
15. But remember,
8's good.
8 is good. We are the student focused, obviously, and we need to align, set priorities. Look at what's not working. If it's not working, set it aside and look at what we really want to do. Increase efficiency, innovation, and reinvent our schools so they look like what our kids can do. Vision 2014, you've heard a lot about that. Like I said, it has not come and gone. We didn't, miss a couple years there, but we are moving forward and looking ahead. This is a timeline. I know those of you in the back, if you're like, you really can't see this, but this is a timeline in terms of where we have been, what we've done, and where we're going. So this was the strategic planning team that met that Eric and Mary were talking about. That's where they are. We are looking now to put some teams together to work toward this new strategic plan. And so I'll talk about how we can get involved in that. And then October 22nd is that kickoff. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. Eric, Mary, do you want to say anything about the timeline? Because you can just hop right on into it.
Just that, and you'll talk about this later, but just that the action teams are currently forming, and you can go onto the district website as a parent and as a community member and sign up for one of 10 different action teams. They all have very prescriptive language, which was agreed upon by the committee. So take a look at the language, and if you are able to make the time commitment, especially, and I'm biased, but and I'm a Lake Elmo parent too, with a 2nd grader and a 1st grader, as you saw, but our building is very different, and so the Lake Elmo perspective is a really important part of this overall process. So just really want to encourage you to be a part of it.
Right, and I'm going to show you how to get onto the website and sign up, and most of you probably already know that. These are the different working groups that Eric was talking about, and I know you can't see those from the back either. But we will talk a little bit about those. This is kind of the overall picture of this really amazing and intense team of 30, how they looked at our district. They looked at the beliefs. What do we believe as a district for our kids? They looked at the mission and reinvented and created a mission that's timely and very student-centered. Looked at the objectives, some strategies, the parameters that keep us in place, and then down at the bottom, and when it says AP, those are the action plans. Those are the different teams that Eric was talking about that we really need participants to help with, to guide us. And I'm going to very quickly talk about each piece individually. This team talked about the beliefs of our district, and they are beliefs that we all have, I am sure, about our students and our children. All people have inherent value. Helping others leads to a greater sense of self-worth. A community thrives when everybody's contributions are respected. Curiosity is essential for lifelong learning. Our future is dependent on outstanding leadership. Encouraging diverse perspectives promotes innovation. Success requires perseverance and learning from failure. All people deserve the environment and opportunity to discover and maximize their potential, and relationships based on caring, honesty, and respect strengthen our community. So I can only imagine how much time that took to pull those beliefs together. And then they went on to the mission. Our mission has been the same for a number of years, but it really needed to be updated to look at our current state and what we needed and wanted for our children. And this is the new mission that the team came up with. The mission of Stillwater Area Public Schools, in partnership with students, family, and community, is to develop curious individuals who are active and engaged leaders in an ever-changing world by challenging each student as he or she travels along their personalized learning pathway. Now, I know that there was an immense amount of discussion and debate about almost every word in that mission. And we're not going to take time to debate every word tonight, but I think some of them that are really important to point out are partnerships and active and engaged leadership, because we all have leadership. We can all develop and encourage leadership in some capacity in that ever-changing world, and personalized learning. Eric, Mary, anything specific on that?
Doing great.
It's just absolutely on.
And then, obviously, whatever we do, we have some parameters that we need to keep in mind. We'll always provide timely communication to our stakeholders. Excellence will always be an expectation that we have. We'll always encourage and support courageous leadership. Now, the strategic objectives is the next piece, and that's what the kids, our students, are going to be able to do. Each student will have the skills and abilities to compete in our ever-changing world. Each student will be an active participant in the community. Each student will contribute to a safe, caring, and healthy environment. Each student will be personally engaged in service to others. Each student will have a passion for learning. Each student will have a sense of belonging, and each student will identify and pursue those passions. The strategies are what the adults are going to need to do, and this is where the action teams revolve around these strategies. So each strategy has 20 people, it's 20, right? About 20 to each. Each of these strategies is actually a team that is going to be meeting for the next 6 to 8 weeks. It's a pretty big time commitment. It's
About 35 to 40 hours.
About 40 hours. And it's looking at each strategy and defining where we want to go and what we need to do as a district. And we really need. So, as I go through these, think about if there's one that just really ignites a passion in you. I would love to see that for our students. That's the one that I want you to really think about, and I'll show you how to sign up for a committee, because we would love to have you part of it. First one, we will ensure positive relationships that support a sense of belonging for each student along their learning pathway. We will connect students in community in relationships that are mutually beneficial. We'll ensure that We will ensure staff has the skills required to differentiate instruction and incorporate and leverage the culture and strengths of each student, so each student has the skills and abilities needed to excel in this ever-changing world. We will develop and implement a process that ensures our curriculum is rigorous, consistent with our beliefs, missions, and objectives. We will attract, hire, and retain staff who embrace the accomplishments of our beliefs, mission, and objectives. We will ensure that staff, students, and families share in the accountability for the educational success of each student. We will encourage students, staff, family, and community through effective communication. We will provide the tools, resources, and learning environment necessary for each student to identify and pursue their passions throughout the learning pathway. We will ensure that critical knowledge about the whole student is captured, shared, and applied to guide them along their personal learning pathway. And finally, we'll provide caring, healthy, and safe learning environments. So those are the 10 action teams. And we, like I said before, and like Eric said and Mary, we really want you to participate in this if you can. I know it's a huge time commitment, so it's not going to be for everybody. But think about that. I'm going to show you how to sign up. It is really easy if I can make it work on here. All right, so you go to the Stillwater area homepage, and then if you scroll down, and you see the action planning team. And you click on that link. And then it says join an action team. It will ask you to put in your first name, last name, email, and phone. And then it lists all those 10 strategies, so you don't have to have them memorized. I know most of you probably do already. But you can go down and look at all 10 of them and think about them a little bit, and then you pick your top 3 choices of the ones that you might like to participate in. And then you will everybody be invited to the October 22nd kickoff?
Yeah, all the people that
All
are
the people
involved in
that
the
signed up,
teams.
and then you'll have more information in terms of your completer and
So the initial time commitment would actually be the Monday after MEA, and it would be from 6 until 9 o'clock p.m. at Stillwater Area High School. And what's going to happen there is each of the action teams has a team leader, and he will meet or she will meet with their 15 to 20 action team members, and you'll actually have dialogue about the process and what does this 35 to 40 hour commitment mean. And my understanding is there'll be some flex, so there'll actually be some dialogue. So there may be a group of us that says, you know, Thursdays are definitely out, you know, and they'll try to be, you know, adapt to make it work for the folks that are in the room.
I was just going to say too, I'm going to assume that a lot of the groups will do some things that are through the internet that won't all be face-to-face, would be my guess.
I know that was a lot of information thrown at you. Do you have a question?
I did get something when I went to conferences on Friday.
Yeah, there's a little flyer.
I know some of the teachers at least were handing it out. She mentioned time commitment and those kind of things.
I think the other thing to be really clear on is this process follows something called the Cambridge model. And the way the model works is these action teams are developing the action plans, which is actually the work. Once that is completed, then in February it goes back to this larger group that spent 3 days together. They'll get back together in February, and then that will be presented and most likely approved by the school board. At that point, there's not an opportunity to weigh in. I mean, that's the opportunity to weigh in is proactively to have your voice as part of the process now. So just to be aware of that, that if you're one that, like myself, who likes to have something to say about everything, the time to do it is now.
Well, and I think that fits in perfectly to the whole advocating for your child theme. You are all elementary parents, or at least elementary teachers, so you're going to be in the system for a while yet. And this plan is going to continue for at least 4, 5, maybe 6 years. It hasn't been set up there. And once this is approved, this is what the school board and the school administration will use to guide every decision we make. And so when you're talking about funding or teachers or classrooms or what you need, to get in here ensures that the system is set up so that the things you're passionate about will be taken into consideration. I mean, not that we don't anyway, but it's easier
But
if it's
Natasha,
here.
that's a good point, that, I mean, this is what you're going to, you need to hear from us as parents, community, and staff, so that you can help guide your decisions.
Because everything we do, once this is put into action, if somebody wants to spend money and they can't tie it back to one of these 10 steps, it very likely will not happen. You know, we just don't have that kind of extra money, and these 10 action steps are going to take plenty of money on their own, and we have money, but we can't be going after every little thing.
Thank you. Can we make that presentation available with the video from tonight?
Yes.
Because we can send out another link to
Sure.
people to come in. I think it's perfect.
Right, and so, I mean, the time is now, the first meeting is a week from yesterday, so you've got something to do over the weekend.
And you can leave the room tonight before signing up. We will
Yeah.
let you go.
You don't need this right up.
No, I don't.
But I like to have my opinion known, so I joined an action team because I'm school board, but if that's approved and I'm not part of it now, too late, I lost my chance.
So even school board members are joining the action teams?
Yes, but we're not going to take over the action teams. They're not going to let
And
us.
I signed up.
You can guess which two I signed.
10.
Yeah, so what we wanted to do tonight is,
Before we move on.
oh yeah, go ahead.
With the principal's transition, that's a relatively significant event in the school. Can you share a little bit more of how that's taking place, what the mechanics are, and how it's being communicated to our children, so we can kind of ensure a consistent message?
Well, Mr. Gordy was here last year, so the kids are very familiar with him, and I get asked on a daily basis, you know, when is Mr. Gordy coming back? So, and I know the teachers know when he's coming back, and so the teachers have talked about it probably in their morning meetings and things like that, and I can make sure that that happens as well. But in terms of the transition, he's coming back on Monday, I'm here on Monday, and we are going to have a very packed day of me filling him in terms of where we've been and what we've done while he's been gone. He's, as you know, an amazing administrator, very seasoned, knows what he's doing. He was here last year, he's been in the district. And so I don't have any reservations that transition is just.
What is the message to the children on where he's been?
Oh, and they know that because that message has gone out that he was on personal leave and he was taking care of his family.
Okay.
So we invited several different groups here tonight to talk a little bit about advocating for your child. And I think, you know, this could spin off into a very broad topic. Some of the things that I think we as a PTA get asked a lot is, if I'm having trouble in the classroom, what do I do? Who do I approach? What kind of questions do I need to know about my child's day? How do I get in touch with my child's learning style? What is learning style? So just different questions. So we invited some teachers to come and maybe tell us from, we have some younger elementary and then some 6th grade, 5th grade teachers too, the perspective of what you as a parent can do to really get involved in your kids' education, understand them and their learning style, their learning needs, what are the things that we can be doing, and then all the way up to Mary's level and the school board level, how you would like to see parents, you know, involved. Obviously, this is one outlet, the action teams, but if there's other things, and when do we come to you with that sort of thing? So I don't know if you guys have something that you want to share, or if you guys want to just do question answer. It's kind of open. If anybody has questions right off the bat, or I could just put you on the spot.
I'd be happy to
Okay.
just talk about the communication
Yeah.
piece. It's, you know, back when I first started teaching, we didn't have phones in our classroom. There was no such thing as email. We had conferences twice a year, and that was the only time I really ever saw or spoke to parents, unless there was a major problem. So, you know, things have changed so dramatically in that sense, which is a good thing. of course, in many ways. You know, you can reach us by telephone, by email, and I guess my one, or in person, my one request would be if you ever have even the teeny tiniest concern, that you would contact the teacher, because I know he or she would be more than happy to hear, or would be wanting to hear from you. And there's no such thing as too small of a concern. So in whatever way works for you, you know, whatever method of communication, please just contact us. If you, you know, we'd so much rather hear from you and talk to you about it, the parent, than hear from it via somebody else that you were upset or whatever, or that you were concerned about something, or that you were thrilled with something. You know, it's just always good to hear right directly from the parents, whatever method works best for you.
And I think as educators too, you're the parent. You know your child better than anybody else on the face of the earth. And we need to partner with you. We need your expertise on your child, what works best, what doesn't work so well. It would be crazy for us not to tap into what you know about your children and have that partnership with you. So know that we want that and we desire that and we need that to best serve your kids.
That was what was so nice about these conferences. It's always great to sit down, but then afterwards you think, whoa, I didn't, you know, that explains that, or, you know, it's so nice to hear what you were just saying, Carrie, about the child from the home perspective. You learn a lot from the parents.
I would just add that the planner and the take-home folder are another great communication tool. So checking that daily helps a lot with communication.
From the upper grade perspective, are you guys using Skyward too?
No.
Oh.
No.
Okay.
Well, actually, district-wide we are.
Yeah, okay, well.
But not like
Sorry,
daily
conversation.
basis.
Sixth grade has got a lot of things online, which is trying to get them ready for 7th grade and whatnot, but in this digital day and age, I know in this building we are trying to get caught up as much as we can, but I think from our perspective, it could be a written planner, or my perspective is, are you checking our webpage and going online? Like, I can't tell you how powerful that can be, that I get an email that says, I saw this, what does it mean, versus he has a missing assignment. So, because the course of action we can then take is drastically different and more powerful if the more you know. So that whole part of checking a planner, whether it's paper and pencil or it's an online source, is something that is really, really powerful for you, for your child, and for us.
And for anyone with a 6th grade child, their website is really awesome. Like, so much information on the 6th grade website.
Thanks to my teammates.
And you have parents checking that like weekly, like instead of a Friday folder, or
Well,
in
it runs the
conjunction?
gamut. I have some parents who I think are addicted to it. And I'm not kidding. They will check it hourly. And then I have parents who at conference said, what's Skyward? So, yeah, you have a website? And I get it. It's not accessible to everybody at the same levels and all of that kind of thing, but the more you reach out to us and just ask, there are no dumb questions. I'd rather have the parent come to me and say, I'm not good at the computer, like, what can I do? I'd rather say to them, well, I've sent like 4 things home, do you get them? And we can have that conversation and figure that out and give them that information, and they can tell me the best way that I should contact them, versus just almost, I think some parents feel a little apprehensive, like we're going to be annoyed or upset that they don't know what's going on. Quite the contrary. We tell the kids no dumb questions. So, you know what I mean? If that makes any sense.
And I don't know if the 6th grade Skyward site works the same way the secondary sites work, but I am able to sign up for weekly updates. So every week I get an email, one from the high school, one from the junior high, telling me, first of all, my kids' grades, and then a second email telling me all of their missing assignments, and that email's never blank at my house. I don't know if 6th grade allows the same thing.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
I just met with Mr. Klein. He showed me so that for my students, I can just get one report a week rather than looking at everyone. yeah, you can set that
So
up.
parents would have to go and set that up.
Yeah, into Skyward.
But it's
Like,
quick and
That's a
easy.
great, yeah, I was gonna say, that's a great tool. How many families have you run into in your classes that are saying like that, Ben, that don't have access to the internet or that aren't using that as their main method of communication, and so then what do we do in that perspective, you know, when we have situations like that?
Very few.
Okay.
Most people I've talked to have said that at some point during a day or a week they have access.
Okay,
And one parent said, we don't have a computer at home, we go to the library once a week. So
Okay.
I'm always, I'm checking my email once a week, and that's perfect. So once a week is amazing. So, and then if it's the other way around, then that's a parent that I'm probably going to eventually communicate more with, which is a great thing. I mean, I will probably call them more often, or they'll come in more often, or I'll send more notes home that way. Like that progress report, I could send one home in a Friday folder. If you don't want to deal with trying to figure that out online, then I'll do it. It's not that hard. It's like literally, it's like print, put it in a Friday folder. So, I think that's where I just noticed this at conferences, which were amazing, and I had more people show up at this earlier time. So whoever can tell people higher up, like, we need to keep doing this, that'd be great. But also, I had a number of parents who almost felt apologetic if they didn't know what was going on or something. And it's like more on the contrary. It's like, this is exactly why we're having you come in now.
Yeah.
Like, I want you. And I constantly tell parents I'm more than willing to conference, and rarely do I ever get somebody who actually takes advantage of that. Because again, it's, you do so much, you take so much time. We all do so much. It's, everybody's busy, so.
I think that's the reason why most parents hesitate to contact teachers about the teeniest, tiniest thing, is because they know how busy teachers are. And so I think for me as a parent, and from talking to teachers, what's helpful is when you guys send notes home on Friday folders or at the beginning of the year, please contact me anytime. Here's my phone number, here's my email, and get the message out there. Like, it's okay to call me. But I think that is a big obstacle as to why you don't hear about the little things until they grow into the big things, is because parents don't want to bother with the little stuff, so, yeah.
I think you're right. And I think the other thing, the other question, I think some of the conversations that I've had with parents is they don't know if it's their student or if it's something that's happening in the classroom, and they don't want to be offensive, and so I think just knowing that everyone's open, which I think everyone is, to those conversations, I think is a great step forward.
My lens into that is a certain amount of discord and conflict is opportunity. But we're not doing our jobs if we walk hand in hand through your child's 7 years and there's never some sort of difference of opinion. In my office, that's kind of a daily occurrence, based on some of the work that I do, and it's a rich opportunity to really explore it, find out, what are the values of the parents? Where are they coming from? What is it they want for their child? And so often, you're able to find commonality. Both parties want what's best for the child. And so those mild conflicts or that discourse end up strengthening the relationship most of the time between parent and student and faculty. So.
Do you have anything to add from a principal perspective?
Yeah, I think sometimes parents hesitate to contact the teacher because maybe one of the concerns is something in the classroom that may have to do with the teacher. That happens too. Like Eric was saying, we have different personalities, we have different perspectives. And so then, as a parent, it's hard to contact the teacher and say, I have a concern about something that happened in school, or the way you handled this, or something that was taught, or a conflict. I always tell parents, that relationship is the most important piece. The relationship that your child has with the teacher, the relationship you have as a parent or guardian with the teacher. But if you have a concern about the teacher, you can come to the principal. And people that have done that all this year and last year, Mr. York is very open to that too, because we're here to help too. And we're here to help and build that relationship. And it's not a he said, she said sort of thing. It's a working partnership, and like Eric said, it gives us an opportunity to discuss, to communicate, to find out what's going on so that we can make that relationship better and stronger.
Mary, do you have anything that you'd like to offer?
Well, actually did a,
did,
exactly.
yeah.
You don't work it out with the principal, then you come to me. And it's funny that you asked that. I know I'm on tape, but I was just talking to Eric. I was just talking to Eric this morning that I'm still working on. I've been a principal for so long, and now I'm in this, larger overseeing 9 schools, and sometimes I want to get in right in the front end because that's where I have been for so long. But I trust the staff and the principals to work out things. But certainly I am here as a support to them. Sometimes I can just be a voice, or if Carrie's got a question, she can call, or so my hope would be I'd be a support. But certainly if there is an issue that is going unresolved, I would be happy to jump in and work with the principals from that perspective. But a question I would probably throw out there, depending on the circumstances, have you talked to the teacher? Have you talked to the principal? And to kind of see gauge where we're at. But certainly, no matter what the answer is to that, I want every parent to feel they have a voice. I'm repeating right as you started, Marcia. I want parents to have a voice. You give us your precious cargo every single day. And there are many days where we see your kids awake more than you do. And we want you to have confidence in us, and we want you to send your little ones off, and even your not so little ones. In your heart, they're always going to be your baby, even if they're 17. And so, we take that very seriously, and we're committed to that. And, when mama's happy, generally the rest of us are. And I mean that in all seriousness. If the parents feel confident and comfortable, generally that is going to, your kids are going to get that. So we want to get anything resolved quickly and as fast as possible. So you might think, just as everyone has already said. But it's much easier to take care of just a little thing than if it grows into something bigger. Then it gets harder and harder to take care of. So I'm just repeating what everyone has already said. But get in and talk to the teachers to get what you need.
I want to add one piece about Mary's language, get in. Our parents need to be in the building when they can be. It's a wonderful thing. It's one thing to hear from your children at the dinner table, and that can look very differently depending on the day. Sometimes my children are very willing to share, sometimes I get nothing. But when you come in, you develop what I would describe as insider's eyes. And I see it as, educators in this building are partners in summoning the development of your child's potential. And the more that we can glean from you, from what you're seeing at home, and the more you can give us feedback from what you're actually seeing by being in the building, by volunteering in the classrooms, the tighter that bond is. So I would say, the only caveat I have to contacting a teacher anytime at any moment on any day is if you call a teacher during instructional hours using the phone, don't expect them to pick up. And that's a compliment. Some may, but that means that they're in front of your children and they're teaching your children and they don't have time to pick up the phone because your kids are their focus.
Do you have anything from the teacher standpoint perspective that you want to share? Or otherwise I was going to move to kind of bigger issue.
The school board kind of falls at the bigger issues.
Yeah.
If you're coming to me to complain about your kid's second grade teacher, I'm going to send you back, if not to the teacher, then to the principal, because school board members really have no business playing around there. Unless, it's horribly abusive and the principal's ignoring you.
Yeah.
If it like escalates to...
Then I'll take care of it.
Yeah, don't send it to Mary.
I didn't mean to beat my chest there. That was...
A lot of people said the same thing.
So they'll all be watching.
Yeah, so now at least it's not live. I mean, we're trying to do like
Do you want to edit, Mary?
Mary, you're one of us now, it's fine.
And parents jump in too with other questions.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate I'm glad to hear from a teacher perspective that you really enjoyed the conferences too, because from a parent perspective, I felt like in fourth grade they didn't have the meetings beforehand this year at the start of the year to say, here's the curriculum, kind of here's our focus here. So this was my chance to sit down with the teacher and really get a better understanding of what's going to be covered and what things that, that's important to me that I want to pick up at home, or areas that I'm concerned about, so that she knows too, to kind of reinforce those things too. So I thought that was a really great tool that I'd like to see continue too.
And I liked having them without my kids there. Because I come and volunteer during the day, but there's children around and teachers are busy, but it could be very frank of, this is how it is, and how can we work together without their ears.
But I do like the fact that they were involved in the process
Yes.
this year of setting
Yes.
some goals for
Their
themselves
goals.
and thinking about little things that they wanted to work on. I think is amazing, giving them personal responsibility. So it was good in our households. The last thing I wanted to do, because I have 10 minutes. I just couldn't see, I couldn't No, but I wanted to talk like bigger issue type things. I think we all kind of went through, a lot of people in the room went through the issue with the second grade staffing this year. And just issues that we have a principal and we have building leadership that's very forthcoming with information, educating our parents about what's happening in the district, what's happening in our building, what next year is going to look like for our kids. And I think we tried to have a voice and try to get our parents to have a voice, and I'm not sure that it went over as well as we had hoped. From the perspective of there was lots of back and forth, and is there a better way that we could do it for future? So I think that's kind of discussion. Not that it was negative or bad or anything. Just going forward, did we do the best things possible? Is there something different that we should do? So I think, and maybe this falls to the three of you versus the teachers in this case, but I don't know if anyone has insights that they want to share from that perspective.
Well, it was a big, long process.
It was, yeah.
In the spring, as you mentioned, Mr. Gordy was new last year to Lake Elmo, so his state of the school, which normally we do in the fall, with their PTA, we talk about the data and the school and where we're going and goals and those sorts of things. That didn't happen in the fall, so in the spring there was more of the state of the school and where we are, what is our enrollment, who's teaching what next fall, so that you know. And then there were some concerns that were brought up at that meeting in terms of class size, based on what we knew at that time. And that, I think, is where you started in talking about, as parents, we're kind of concerned about some of the things that we're seeing here. What can we do to help? And that's kind of where that started.
Yeah.
And that's when it ended up in our email
Yes.
boxes.
And so from your perspective, I guess maybe, because, we heard things, we got tons of emails from tons of parents, and maybe that's not what the kinds of things that you guys want.
No,
I think those phone calls, or should it have gone through to just Stephen or just Mary or?
Well, I think they were stuck in a budget crunch.
Yeah.
And they really can't do anything without more money.
Yeah.
Or they could, finagle staffing, but they can't make a substantive change without having more money handed to them. And that won't come without superintendent and board approval.
Yeah.
And so I think emails from parents, just like you're saying, are very welcome. And they help, because sometimes we have no idea there was a second grade classroom problem until we started getting parent emails. Now, the kind of parent emails that we hate are when somebody sends out one paragraph and then we get 50 emails of the same paragraph. Just
I see.
So people were cutting and pasting.
well, I'm not sure it was this school.
Yeah.
We in the spring we knew which were the angry schools. Let's just put it that way. But again, it's not. I can understand, I can empathize. I'm glad to hear you, but I can't necessarily pull a solution out of my back pocket. But I know because of the activity here, it was looked at more, and some things were finally switched around this fall, right, Carrie? That may ease the situation at least, maybe not as much as forever. And yeah, so don't just cut and paste an email. Share your stories or your particular concerns. The other thing that falls on deaf ears is if this doesn't change, I'm gonna pull my kid out of the Stillwater schools. And I'm sure you feel strongly about that, but, you know, we can't make a big change because one family wants to switch schools. That's every family's right, and we'll do everything we can. And then there were some really great arguments coming in the emails about the population of the school and how we should reconsider the staffing model. And that was something as a board that we had begun talking about last year. But the thing you have to know about a school district, it's kind of like driving a big old ship. And so you can crank the handlebar, but the turn is very slow. In the classroom level, you tell a teacher something has to change, and oftentimes they can change it the next day, you know, if something needs to be done. But the higher up you get, the harder that is to happen. And we are committed to having a different staffing model in place by the time staffing goes out this year. It's, you know, being looked at, being talked about, and you're right, this is very different than Marine and Withrow, and I thought their staffing model should have changed this year, but I was not the prevailing voice. But because it's a terrible imbalance, and there shouldn't be imbalances like that. But keep sending emails, let us know. And the more emails we get, the shorter our responses get to each of you, which doesn't mean we're not reading them any less. It just, you know, the first, if I get one a day or two or three, and this or two or three, I'm still responding to each one with like a real heartfelt response. And then, you know, 10 days in and I'm hearing the same arguments, and even, I think you guys pretty much all wrote your own emails, you weren't doing the cut and paste thing. But I feel like I've said it all before, and I know I haven't said it to each of you. But you did hear from me, if you were talking about that situation, because fourth grade was also a problem. And so you did hear from me that my son, who's now graduating, was in a fifth grade class with, I said 34, but I just found out tonight it was actually 33. And I also said it was the best year of his school career, and this was his teacher, Marcia Kettler.
It was a great year.
So I really believe they're great teachers here, and they're going to get class sizes that aren't the best, and you know they're going to have things that are harder to deal with, and you know we might like something new or different, but it's just not always in the budget. And that's the other thing, if we're going to stick another teacher here, who are we going to take the teacher away from? And just as hard as it was for you all to hear that second grade is big, if we had gone up to Marine and said, oh, we're taking your fourth grade teacher in August, that would have been another whole issue and wouldn't have been fair to that school. So we have to balance things kind of on that macro level. But we do appreciate your input. And emails, I think, for all of us, and every board member, it's not only me that reads the emails and responds, but every single one of us. I have a lot of faith in my fellow board members, and I know we're each working our hardest and trying our very best to make everything come out, and reading all those emails. And we like that. And it's better than a phone call because we can take it on our own time.
Oh, true.
Yeah.
We don't like to call ourselves angry, we call ourselves
And I like deflammatory language.
Yeah.
I prefer that.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I would just concur with everything that was said here. I mean, you know, we all have 20/20 hindsight, and I don't, you know, I actually don't have 20/20 hindsight, to be honest with you. I don't know I see clearly that way either, but I think we always, whenever I have an issue, and I know that, you know, there's been folks that, you know, aren't feeling good about it, it's like reflecting back on what could I have done differently, and I'm sure there's a lot of things I could have done differently in this case, but the piece that was so hard with this particular case was the budget, you know, and
after just going through the budget talks.
And I'm hoping in years to come that we can, with some differing staffing models, not only including what you just had mentioned, but if we could somehow, and maybe I'm dreaming, and I know, again, I'm on tape, but it would be really nice if we could somehow, as a district, have just a little pocket that is unencumbered in August. That then if the high school is having a huge issue, or Lake Elmo has an issue, or whoever, that we can, because we kind of always know there's something that's going to happen somewhere. I mean, there was lots of different bubbles in as we looked this last August. So I'm hoping that in future years, the budget won't be as consuming that we have to actually count the children on the first day of school. Because that's hard for, there isn't anyone that that's not easy for. And then the other question that you had that I want to make sure is answered is I also know last summer with me being new and Chris leaving, that there was some like who's she and what's going on and who's on first and who's on second. And so hopefully now moving forward too that, you know, I'm kind of the voice for the elementary at the district office. So I would welcome any of you, you know, as you're traveling along that highway to stop with me before you go to Corey or the board. You know, because I can be the one that comes back right back in the buildings, and they can't even really work on those issues.
We could just tell people that they should look into this.
Yeah, I would
or
just
tell
get
us what the problem is.
Take care of that, which is fine.
I can't go in and reassign staffing.
I'm hoping too, the longer, you know, that I'm here in the position that Chris had now, as two of us in it, that we can align those things too.
I'd like to just speak as a parent in the building. I'm a coordinator, so I was an administrator, so I wasn't directly involved, but I was as a parent. And I think I talked earlier about how conflict and discord can present opportunity. And I think in this case, ultimately, from my lens as a parent, it did. I think there's four main pieces for me that are important. One, as a district, we talk about being transparent. If we say we're going to be transparent, we need to be transparent. There's a difference between being transparent and being translucent. You have a right to ask for data that's public data. If that data is not provided, you have the right to ask why. That's the first piece as far as parent advocacy. The second piece that I'm just endeared and proud of you all as the equity coordinator. At one point we were trying to get really creative with, you know, how can we make this work? Because these class sizes are too big. And there was discussion around removing one of our interventionists and putting the interventionist into second grade, so eliminating that position. Well, our struggling learners, what we refer to as gap groups, kids that were already underserving, you know, so they're not working up to grade level, need some of our best and brightest educators. And so I was really proud when 3 parents met with Ray and Mary, and they had some really good, rich philosophic discussion and said, we're here to advocate for all 725 of our kids. I'm part of a collaborative called EMID, and I collaborate with 10 other member districts. And when I shared that story with the other integration leaders, they'd hardly heard of that before, of a building really embracing that we identity. It chokes me up. That was really powerful. So for those that were involved in that discourse, thank you. The third thing, I'm really proud of Mary and Ray Queener for coming and meeting with parents. And I visited with those parents after that meeting. They felt heard, they felt respected. It wasn't that there was some simplistic, magical solution that everyone walked away with, but that was such an important piece of you being new, becoming a connector, building trust, and so I'm thankful for that. And then the final piece, Dr. Queener has really followed through on his promise to explore this idea of weighted staffing. This isn't new stuff, guys. There's districts, Mounds View, North St. Paul Public Schools have been doing weighted staffing for a long time. And it is time for Stillwater to catch up. And Ray has really been working with those districts because in order for it to be sustainable, we need a model. There needs to be a model. It can't just be a construct. And so I'm really pleased about that it may come down to dollars and cents, but the bottom line is if we have a model, the possibility always exists that we can do something with it. So as a second grade parent, you know, those are kind of my 4 takeaways that I feel like a very intense conflict, if I'm going to call it the way I saw it, really ended up, you know, presenting a wonderful opportunity for our students and families.
And I think on the board too, the board really supports Lake Elmo, and we get how you're different than nearly every other building in this district. And so you don't have to convince us of that. We get that. We do need to know, you know, if you want our help, that class sizes are, you know, way over the top, because we don't know that unless you tell us.
And just so like parents don't know how the teachers speak and all that, Carrie, can you explain what weighted staffing means?
I can try, and Erin, you can help me, and Erin, you can jump in as well. Weighted staffing is really looking at the students and the needs in the building, rather than just looking at it from a numerical equation standpoint. What we have done in the past is we have looked at the population, the numbers. How many second graders, how many students do you have in your building? How many students do you have at each grade level? You're given so much staffing for the numbers that you have, looking at the ratio that the district has set for each grade level, and then there's also a range that goes above and below that perfect ratio for each grade level. So it's very numerical. You get staffing based on your numbers. Weighted staffing is you get staffing based on not just your numbers, but the needs in your building. What are the needs of the students in terms of academics, social, emotional, linguistically? And it's weighted that way rather than just a numerical equation.
For example, when I taught in Rochester Public Schools, my class size could not get above 24 students because I was dealing with multiple diverse populations where language needed to be supported and other diverse populations that needed to be enriched, and they were gifted and talented populations. But because I was working with that, all sorts of groups, my class size could only get so high, which helps out when you're trying to differentiate and trying to meet the needs of all the learners. So.
And could I assume then there were other teachers in the district at your same grade level that had a different?
Yes, had a different model.
cutoff?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Very much so.
So in other words, this group of 29 students might be totally different than this 29 group of students. You can't just say it's 29 because they're students with different needs.
So are you looking at like IPCs? Are you looking at test scores? How, like, what are you looking at to determine students'
It is a good question, and that is part of the conversation that's going to be happening this year as we look at weighted staffing. But you look at the big picture in terms of needs, gifted and talented, as well as those that struggle academically. Is English their second language? Are there kids that are on IEPs? Do they need specialized instruction physically as well? Other special needs physically. So it has to be the big picture. And it is complicated. When you think about it, it's just mind-boggling.
It's not an easy thing.
No. It just...
Because there's not that many kids that just fall into that norm.
Think of your own. They don't fall right there.
And to make it even more crazy, in an ideal world, we'd have what are called ILPs for each kid, individualized learning plan. At our 2 junior highs right now, so we've just been talking about our high achievers and our struggling learners. At our 2 junior highs, where our kids are going to be matriculating, we have a program called AVID. It stands for Advancement via Individual Determination. And it specifically targets kids in the academic middle. Because what happens is if you don't get in that honors English class in 7th grade, unfortunately, you end up being tracked and you don't get access to that rigorous curriculum.
Well, we don't track anyone.
Well, it's...
You can choose honors English later.
You can,
yeah.
but it's very difficult if you don't have the, we don't like the word tracking, but if you don't have that foundational, rigorous English foundation, it becomes difficult.
We have had to make changes though, because they used to say a kid, in order to take AP, had to do such and such. And we have all AP classes open to all kids.
Yeah, which is a great statement for equity. So if kids have the foundation and the determination, they can be successful. But that's what AVID does. So it targets a whole nother group. So the challenges are immense. Yeah.
I want to make the last statement, if I can.
What?
I want to make the final statement.
Oh,
if
please
there are no
do.
more
I love
particular.
it, yeah.
Okay, this is the advocacy piece. And what I want to remind all of you is that our last levy failed, and we'll be running a new levy next year. And we will never get it passed unless every single person in this room does everything they can to pass it. And you saw the class size issues this year. It would have been eased had that levy passed. That's not the only reason that they were large. But if next year levies expire, and so if we don't get anything passed next year, class sizes everywhere will be, ungodly. I can't imagine how we're going to fit the kids in the room if we don't get the levy passed. So we really need everybody to, not just email school board members, but get out, walk the street, knock the doors, talk to your neighbors, explain why this levy is necessary. And then the next thing is there's a school board election this year. You may not hear about it between the everything else being elected. But there are 3 open seats on the board. All 3 incumbents are running. And I personally think they're all doing a great job. But in 2 years, there will be 4 board seats open. And I am nearly certain not all 4 board members will be running again. And so just as I came out of Lake Elmo PTA, who here?
Look away, look away.
Is-
She's got her eyes on
Think about it. Think about, could you be a leader? Is this something you want to do? Do you like policy? Do you want to help make the district a better place? But we always need to look for the people who are coming up through the system who are going to fill in for the spots for the people who can't or don't want to stick around anymore. Poor George Hefner's dream Saturday. George Hefner will keep going forever, but I had to twist his arm to get him to run last time. Because his wife wants to move to New Richmond, where the grandkids are.
Well, the other thing that I did, so you have Natasha's email. I hope that's okay.
This one's right on the website. I couldn't keep it from you if I tried.
And then you have Mary's email there, and then I put yours on there too in case you have questions for Eric, and then Carrie's. And the other things that I included, advocacy can go all the way up to the, state policy, national education reform, lots of different things. I put the Minnesota PTA, what they're doing about education. I put national PTA, you can find out what they're doing. And our efforts support their efforts by membership and the such. But the other thing I put on there is Parents United, and Mary, the director of that group has, Ciccone, has, I have never had the opportunity to personally meet her, but we've had several conversations. She does a lot of this conversation with parents and about just getting involved in the process.
And she's a former state board
member. And she's actually Lake Elmo as well.
And she was Lake Elmo as well.
So she does a lot of, I don't know if she's considered a lobbyist or just working efforts for education reform in locally here.
And she used to be on our school board too.
Yeah. So her website, they do a great email to let you know what's coming, what's happening, issues that are going to be facing the kids from the state perspective, and she's great about doing updates that way. So that's what you have on your sheet.
Diane Ravitch is going to be speaking for the teachers' conferences on Thursday. I think it's 11:45. I was looking for it. But if you can get a babysitter and want to go downtown Minneapolis and hear her speak, she's phenomenal in terms of looking at how education and policy need to change.
And Mary sent out an invitation.
Yeah, Mary sent that one out.
For that.
I think I deleted it from my phone.
She has that on her site too. So,
That's what made me think of it.
Yeah. Oh, good. So, thank you. Thank you to our special guests for coming and taking the questions. And hopefully we didn't.
I usually flourish in front of cameras. The beating my chest thing, I got carried away.
Background.
I'll end up on some